ever wondered why some tragedies spark massive global outrage while others are just kind of treated as business as usual? Well, I'm absolutely thrilled you're here today because we're unpacking a truly fascinating, dense, and honestly staggering piece of political theory. It's a framework that completely challenges how we view power, life, and governance. Our goal today is to break it all down clearly so you can grasp exactly how it works. Let's get right into it. Who is made killable? Wow. It's a really heavy question, isn't it? Like, what does it actually mean when entire populations are forced to live under conditions where death just becomes ordinary, or expected, or even politically useful? We're talking about the selective distribution of death. It's this profound realization that some lives are fiercely protected at literally all costs, while others are just completely marginalized, rendered invisible, and systematically exposed to danger. Okay, let's dive right into this. The concept we're unpacking today is called Necropolitics. It was developed most notably by the political theorist Achille Mbembe back in his 2003 essay of the exact same name. At its core, necropolitics refers to the way power governs through the creation of death worlds, essentially deciding who gets to live and who is exposed to death. It takes the whole idea of political power way beyond just, making laws or collecting taxes, and it looks at power as the ultimate arbiter of human vulnerability. Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. First, what is necropolitics? Second, biopolitics versus necropolitics. Third, understanding death worlds. Fourth, distributing death today. And finally, the value of life. All right, let's start with section 1. What is necropolitics? The two faces of sovereignty. So in traditional liberal political thought, we usually imagine sovereignty as protection, right? Law and order. The shield. The idea is that the state exists to protect you, to guarantee your rights, to secure your future. But Mbembe pushes us to look at the other face of that coin. Sovereignty isn't just protection. It is also the right to expose certain populations to abandonment and death. Mbembe argues that sovereignty is often revealed most clearly in the power to decide who matters, who doesn't, and whose death can simply be normalized as an acceptable loss for a state's broader goals. Moving on to section 2, biopolitics versus necropolitics, a crucial shift. Now, what's really interesting here is that Mbembe developed his theory in direct dialogue with Michel Foucault's famous idea of biopolitics. Foucault argued that modern power works by managing life. It's about regulating health, sexuality, labor, basically making entire populations flourish. That's biopolitics. But Mbembe asks a really vital question. What about situations where power isn't about making life flourish, but about deciding who can be left to die? That is necropolitics. It's the unequal distribution of death. Now, these two concepts don't cancel each other out. Actually, they work hand in hand. Modern power often carefully manages and protects life for some, while simultaneously exposing others to systemic decay. Section 3. Understanding death worlds and living in the shadow of death. To understand this historically, Mbembe points straight to colonialism. Colonial rule didn't treat all human life equally. It relied on absolute spatial control, literally drawing lines and building walls between those who mattered and those who were treated as disposable. The colony wasn't just an administrative territory, It was a zone where violence could be exercised openly and permanently without the usual legal restraints. Colonized populations were governed through segregation, forced labor, and constant physical domination. This is one of the clearest historical sites of necropolitical power, because it intentionally created populations who could be dominated or killed without those deaths carrying any equal political weight or sparking any moral outrage. And that historical spatial control leads us to this pivotal modern term, the death world. Mbembe argues that modern power completely blurs the boundaries between war and everyday life. A death world isn't necessarily a traditional battlefield with armies and trenches. It's a social world where people are forced to exist in conditions of chronic vulnerability, disposability, and diminished life. Think about the gravity of those words for a second. Chronic vulnerability. You are technically alive, but your everyday conditions are fundamentally shaped by the constant, suffocating nearness of death. And the absolutely crucial point here is that this isn't just about a bullet or direct active killing. It is about exposure. Exposure to hunger, exposure to abandonment, exposure to pollution, exposure to unlivable conditions, exposure to militarized violence, and exposure to premature death. Power structures the environment so effectively that simply existing within it means your life is being slowly drained. The system doesn't have to pull a trigger if it can simply orchestrate the conditions where living itself becomes inseparable from these chronic mortal exposures.
Let's jump to Section 4, Distributing Death Today, from abstract theory to reality.
A bridge collapsing is an accident, but systematically denying a population clean water, that is necropolitics. And this brilliantly illustrates the core of Mbembe's theory. A bridge collapsing is a tragic, unforeseen failure. But locking away a basic, life-sustaining necessity like clean water? If a population is systematically denied healthcare, safe housing, or protection from violence, and that neglect is politically structured and historically rooted rather than just a random accident, well, we're looking at necropolitics. It's the silent, bureaucratic politics of letting people die and normalizing the idea that certain lives are simply disposable. So, where do scholars actually see this happening today? Here are the modern necropolitical environments identified in our source material: refugee detention, environmental racism, prisons and police violence, settler colonialism, and abandoned urban or rural spaces. The theory is applied to these spaces because populations there are systematically stripped of political agency and forced into environments of profound risk. It helps explain the structural reality of why some populations are treated as full citizens to be rigorously protected, while others are treated merely as risks to be contained, managed, and left to face compounding dangers. And to be clear, we aren't endorsing any specific political viewpoint here. We're just explaining how scholars across diverse disciplines apply this exact theoretical lens to map out unequal vulnerabilities in our real world. Finally, Section 5, the value of life, the moral consequence. Mbembe offers this devastating, profound insight: the value of life is not equally recognized. Let that sink in for a moment. Modern politics might constantly speak the language of universal human rights, liberty, and security, but in actual, on-the-ground practice, Mbembe argues that political orders frequently sort populations. They sort them into those whose lives are fiercely defended and those whose lives are treated as entirely interruptible. This framework provides a stark lens that helps explain why some deaths become major national tragedies that absolutely halt the world, while others pass with minimal public grief, systemic investigation, or even basic human recognition. But we do have to be a little careful with how we use this framework. Critics offer a very fair warning here. Not every injustice is necropolitics. Think of this concept as a highly precise lens, kind of like a magnifying glass. It really shouldn't be broadened to cover every single form of everyday suffering, individual grievance, or general inequality out there. Its true analytical power comes from using it specifically and carefully to analyze organized death, state-sanctioned disposability, and chronic mortal vulnerability. Used that way, it is incredibly potent and illuminating. Which leaves us with one final, highly resonant thought. The whole point of this explainer and the brilliance of Achille Mbembe's work is that it forces us to ask a difficult, completely unavoidable question of the world around us. Not just how does power manage life, but how does power produce disposable lives? I'll leave you to ponder that as you look at the structures around you. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning and keep learning.